Thank you very much indeed. My name is Doug Wassenaar. I'm one of the two local hosts in South Africa. It's a great pleasure and an honor indeed to be welcoming you here to South Africa. We wish you a really productive, intense, exhausting, and stimulating two-day meeting. So if you don't go home completely exhausted, we will regard the meeting as a failure. It's my job today really just to briefly welcome you to the meeting and to set the tone for the meeting. And if you forgive me, I have to refer to my notes because there are quite a couple of things that I would like to mention. So firstly, this is the 13th meeting of the Global Forum for Bioethics in Research. And I welcome you really on behalf of the sponsors, who I will mention in a few minutes. But the planning committee, who's worked very hard to get you all here today and to put the meeting together, and the steering committee, who sort of pretends to look after the planning committee. But in reality, it's all run by one or two people who do all of the work and all of the thinking. The Global Forum for Bioethics in Research is a truly unique event on the global bioethics calendar. It is different from any other bioethics or research ethics meeting that I think you will have attended or have attended in the past. And it's different in several ways, and I'll mention some of them. So firstly, this is not an ethics training workshop. We are not trying to train you to do anything. Secondly, it's not a guideline writing meeting. We're not trying to write guidelines. We're not trying to write policy for a new issue. If some of our deliberations lead to guidelines and inform future policy, that's wonderful. But we're really just here to talk and to listen and to think. It's not a conference where you sit and listen to experts and some not so experts talk about topics that you are vaguely interested in. It's not one of those. It's also just about research ethics. It's not about bioethics globally, generally and generically. It's just about ethics of research and a piece of ethics in research. And the piece varies from year to year, depending on what's current, depending on what we hope is globally relevant. It's a forum. It's a place for people to talk. It's a place for people from the global north to talk with people from the global south. It's a place for people from the global south not to be told by the global north what to do and how to do it. But it's a place for both parties, really, to listen to each other, to inform thoughts, practices, best practices, and to learn from that dialogue. So it's a place really of dialogue and a place of listening. And we hope that in the next 2 days, you will do a lot of talking and a lot of listening. It's also a unique meeting in the sense that almost everyone here is sponsored to be here. It's not a pay and attend kind of meeting. So I want to mention that with that comes an ethical responsibility, that we really do ask you respectfully to attend all of the sessions, to participate actively in all of the sessions, and to listen attentively and contribute to the meeting outcomes. So the design of the forum, of this meeting, follows that ethos. So how do we make it a listening and a talking kind of meeting? Sorry, I had a little too much caffeine this morning. So the design is that they're plenary sessions, and after these two talks, there will be plenary sessions. After this particular plenary, there will be no time for questions and answers because we want you to take those to the breakaway groups. And there'll be lots of breakaway groups in the next 2 days. On your tag, you will see a colored dot, and that tells you which breakaway group that you are in, and you're locked into that breakaway group for the next 2 days. The membership is stable. And all of your points of discussion are meant to be raised and thrown around in the breakaway groups. And each breakaway group will have a chair whose job is really just to get you to talk and get you to listen. We'll have a rapporteur who will write down a lot of the comments and who will report those comments back to the plenary sessions later on in the meeting. And we'll also have a note taker or a scribe. So it's highly structured. It's also just not a talk shop. So we hope to publish the proceedings. We're currently looking for an open access journal that will carry a special issue on the outputs. And anyone in this room is welcome to take the initiative, but obviously in close consultation with the planning committee and the steering committee, to think about contributing to or guest editing a special issue arising out of this. So we like the meeting to drive a publication, a discussion document on state of the art, current thinking. This is what our thoughts are on issues related to data sharing and biobanking. So it's more than just a talk shop. I've been encouraged to tell you to tweet. I don't know what that is, but do it. And apparently there's something called a Twitter handle that you'll be told about. So please make use of that facility. I also want to draw your attention to the fellowship scheme, that if any of you are interested in chasing some of the ideas that come up in the next 2 days and developing a scholarly response to the issues that come up in the next day and a half, the Wellcome Trust and the Global Forum have made a fellowship scheme available for people to do a focused piece of work under supervision and mentorship of other people who are in the room and some who are not. So if you look at page 105 of your program, you'll get details. So make a point of introducing yourself to some of the possible mentors, apply for a fellowship scheme, and you can develop some of the ideas of this meeting and take them further. In closing, I want to also just make a very trivial personal comment that this particular meeting is very special for me in the sense that the second Global Forum for Bioethics in Research was held in Cape Town in this region in 2002. And in fact, it's where I gave my first ever ethics address. For some reason, what were they thinking? I was asked to do a keynote at that particular meeting, and I had never given an ethics talk in my life before. And I have to say that it was really because of that meeting that since 2002, my entire career has been devoted to research ethics, and all I can say is that the networking, the access to resourceful people, the access to gifted colleagues, the access to gifted students, the access to gifted co-authors, all started at the Global Forum for Bioethics in Research. And I really hope that this meeting will be a similar trigger for you, that you use this opportunity to network, get out of your comfort zones, don't just hang out with the 3 people that were on the plane with you, that you know from back home, but really try to get to know other people. And we want to create this global network of resourced people, of gifted people, of talented people who can address some of the tricky ethical issues that we are here to try to unpack, unfold, develop, and advance. So please make the most of this wonderful opportunity in this really wonderful environment. It remains just for me to thank a couple of extremely talented, gifted, patient, and committed people who really got us all here today. And I have to mention Adrienne Hunt and her team. That is Kirsty Eaton and Jack Snow. I also want to make a special mention to Catherine Littler, who was previously from the Wellcome Trust and is now somewhere in Geneva. And Catherine, also without your passion for the Global Forum in Bioethics and Research, this kind of event might have fallen off the global calendar and we wouldn't be here today. So Catherine and your team, thank you very much indeed. This sort of meeting would also not be possible without the commitment of sponsors. At the same time, sponsors want a product. They don't just sponsor feel-good events. We're not just here to have a nice time. And it's because the Global Forum has produced tangible, valuable outputs over the last few years and commissioned reports that have tracked the outputs and documented the outputs and the spin-offs that have come from this meeting. The sponsors have made renewed commitments. And I also want to say that the time for renewing that commitment is drawing close. We're coming to the end of, I think, a 5 or 6 year funding cycle. We really have to thank the commitment of the major sponsors. And I mentioned the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, the National Institutes of Health in the US, the UK MRC, the South African MRC, all of whom have put various major contributions into play because they believe in the value of this meeting. And it's up to us to sustain that value, and it's up to us to grow that value and to sustain the interest of the sponsors, because there's the world of research, and then there's the tiny little but important world of research oversight. And we are about research oversight. And research oversight, as you know, is not about thwarting research, but is about producing better quality research that is of value to humanity and that respects humanity. It remains for me to introduce my local co-host, my fellow South African, Dr. Naresh Bhagwandeen, who represents the Medical Research Council of South Africa, who has very generously also co-sponsored this meeting. And Naresh will welcome you and introduce the first of our plenary speakers. Naresh, thank you very much and welcome. Thank you, colleagues.